The Ugly Duckling by H.C.Andersen. How pleasant it was in the countryside. It was summer. The corn was yellow, the oats green, the haystacks piled up in the green meadows, and there the stork walked about on his long red legs and talked Egyptian, the language he had learnt from his mother. Round the fields and meadows there were large woods, and within them deep lakes. It was indeed delightful in the countryside. In a sunny spot stood a pleasant old farmhouse close by a deep river, and from the house down to the waterside grew great burdock leaves, so high that under the tallest of them a little child could stand upright. In this snug retreat sat a duck on her nest, waiting for her young brood to hatch. She was beginning to get tired of her task, for the little ones were a long time coming out of their shells, and she seldom had visitors. The other ducks far preferred to swim about in the river than to climb the slippery banks and sit under a burdock leaf to have a chat with her. At length one shell cracked, and then another, and from each egg came a living creature that lifted its head and cried, "Beep, beep!" "Quack, quack," said she, and they said it too, as well as they could, and looked all around them beneath the green leaves. And their mother let them look as much as they liked, for green is good for the eyes. "What a big place the world is," said all the young ones, for to be sure they had a great deal more room now than when they lay in the egg. "Do you suppose this is all the world?" said the mother. "Why, it stretches out far beyond the other side of the garden, right into the parson's field. But I've never been there. Are you all out? Oh, no, the largest egg is still there. I wonder how long this is to last. I'm quite tired of it," she said, and seated herself again on the nest. "How are you getting on?" asked an old duck who paid her a visit. "One egg's not hatched yet. It will not break. But just look at all the others. Are they not the prettiest little ducklings you've ever seen? They are the spitting image of their father. Wretched one, he never comes to see me." "Let me see the egg that will not break," said the old duck. "I have no doubt it's a turkey's egg. I was persuaded to hatch some once, and after all my care and trouble with the young ones, they were afraid of the water. I quacked and clucked, but all to no purpose. I could not get them in the water. Let me look at the egg. Ah, yes, that's a turkey's egg. Take my advice, leave it where it is, and teach the other children to swim." "I think I will sit on it a little while longer. As I've sat so long already, a few days will be nothing." "Please yourself," said the old duck, and off she went. At last the large egg broke, and a young one crept forth crying, "Beep, beep." It was very large and ugly. The duck stared at it. "You're very large and not at all like the others. Can you be a turkey? Well, we'll soon see. Into the water he shall go, even if I have to kick him in myself." On the next day the weather was delightful, and the sun shone brightly on the green burdock leaves. So the mother duck took her young brood down to the water and jumped in with a splash. "Quack, quack!" cried she, and one after another the little ducklings jumped in. The water closed over their heads, but they came up again in an instant and swam about quite prettily with their legs paddling under them. The ugly duckling was also in the water, swimming with them. No, that is no turkey. Look how nicely he uses his legs, and how well he holds himself up. That's my own child. He's really quite handsome if you look at him properly. Quack, quack! Come along now with me, and I'll take you out into the world and introduce you to the other ducks in the farmyard. But mind and keep close to me so that nobody can tread on you, and do look out for the cat." When they reached the farmyard there was a terrible commotion. 2 families were fighting for an eel's head, which, after all, was carried off by the cat. "See, children, that is the way of the world," said the mother duck, wetting her beak, for she would have liked the eel's head herself. Come now, use your legs and let me see how well you can behave. You must bow your heads prettily to that old duck yonder. She is the highest born of them all and has Spanish blood. Therefore she is well off. Don't you see she has a red flag tied to her leg, which is something very grand and a great honour for a duck. It shows that everyone is anxious not to lose her, as she can be recognised both by man and beast. Come now, don't turn your toes. A well-bred duckling spreads his feet wide apart, just like his father and mother. In this way. Now bend your neck and say, quack. The ducklings did as they were bid, but the other ducks stared and said, Look, here comes another brood, as if there were not enough of us already. And what a queer-looking object one of them is. We don't want him here. And then one flew over and bit him in the neck. Leave him alone, said the mother. He's not doing any harm. Yes, but he's so big and ugly, said the spiteful duck, and therefore he must be turned out. The others are very pretty children, said the old duck with a rag on her leg. All but that one. I wish his mother could improve him a little. That's impossible, your grace, replied the mother. He's not pretty, but he has a very good disposition and swims as well or even better than the others. I think he'll grow up pretty and perhaps be smaller. He has remained too long in the egg and therefore his figure is not properly formed. And then she stroked his neck and smoothed the feathers, saying, It's a drake, so it doesn't quite matter so much. I think he'll grow up strong and be able to take care of himself. The other ducklings are charming, said the old duck. Well, make yourselves at home, and if you happen to find an eel's head, you can bring it to me. So they made themselves at home, but the poor duckling who had come last out of the egg and looked so ugly was bitten and buffeted and made to look a fool by the hens and the ducks alike. He's too big, they all said, and the turkey cock, who had been born into the world with spurs and who really fancied himself an emperor, puffed himself out like a vessel in full sail and flew at the duckling and became quite red in the head with passion, so that the poor little thing did not know where to go and was quite miserable because he was so ugly and laughed at by the whole farmyard. That was the first day, and as time went on, it got worse and worse. The wretched duckling was chased about by everybody. Even his mother and sisters were nasty to him and kept saying, I wish the cat would get you, you ugly devil. And his mother said, I wish you far, far away. And the ducks bit him, and the hens pecked him, and the maid who had to feed the creatures kicked at him. So he ran away and flew over the fence. The little birds in the bushes shot up in the air in a fright. Oh, that's because I'm so ugly, the duckling thought, and shut his eyes, but ran on all the same till he got out into the wide marsh where the wild ducks lived. And there he lay all night, for he was very tired and very unhappy. In the morning the wild ducks flew up and caught sight of their new comrade. What sort of a chap are you? They asked. He bowed to them and was as polite as he could be. Oh, you're exceedingly ugly, said the wild ducks. But that will not matter if you do not want to marry one of our family. Poor thing, he had no thoughts of marriage. All he wanted was permission to lie among the rushes and drink some of the water on the moor. After he'd been on the moor 2 days, there came 2 wild geese, or rather goslings. Listen, friend, said one of them to the duckling, you're so ugly that we like you very well. Will you go with us and become a bird of passage? Not far from here is another moor, in which there are some pretty wild geese, all unmarried. It's a chance for you to get a wife. You may be lucky, ugly as you are. Bang, bang, sounded in the air, and the 2 wild geese fell dead among the rushes, and the water was tinged with blood. Bang, bang, echoed far and wide in the distance, and whole flocks of wild geese rose up from the rushes. The sound continued from every direction, for the sportsmen surrounded the moor. The blue smoke from the guns rose like clouds over the dark trees, and as it floated away across the water, a number of sporting dogs bounded in among the rushes, which bent beneath them wherever they went. How they terrified the poor duckling! He turned away his head to hide it under his wing, and at the same moment a large, terrible dog passed quite near him. His jaws were open, his tongue hung from his mouth, and his eyes glared fearfully. He thrust his nose close to the duckling, showing his sharp teeth, and then, splash, splash, he went into the water without touching him. "Oh, thank goodness," sighed the duckling. "I'm so ugly, even the dog doesn't like to bite me." And so he lay quite still while the shot rattled through the rushes and gun after gun was fired over him. It was late in the day before all became quiet. He waited several hours yet before he looked about him, and then he hurried away from the marsh as fast as ever he could, running over fields and meadows. Towards evening he was near a poor little cottage. So crazy and crooked was the cottage that it didn't know which way to tumble down, so it remained standing.